Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending and appreciate your time to listen to this 30-minute presentation. My name is Si Wing Yee from the Yee Real Estate Network. And our special guest is no other than Kevin McVicker from Raleigh, North Carolina market. And Kevin and I have known each other since 2004, something like that, almost 18, 19 years ago. Wow, how time flies. we, when Kevin used to come to our club meeting back then, back in the old days, he has promoted North Carolina to our investors. And off and on, we communicated over the years. And, we lost track for a while. Now we're back. And Kevin, is in the market. He knows the neighborhood. He knows the market for the past 20 something years. So he knows everything about the North Carolina Raleigh market. So he has a unique understanding. And so he worked with out-of-state investors for many, many years. So I rely on him. I trust his process. He's very transparent. He's very caring. He provides outstanding client service. He go above and beyond the call of duty to help our California investors to achieve their dream of buying some great properties here in Raleigh metro market. So let me give you some additional high level of what's going on. I believe, in my opinion, the Raleigh market is like Austin 2.0. What do I mean by that? We've been promoting Austin over the years consistently, right? And many for the past 10 years, really, even longer for my network investors. And many investors of ours have purchased in Austin, but for those of you that purchased in Austin, like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you guys made a windfall. You know what I mean by windfall? You guys make a killing in a market. And you know who you are. Not that many, okay? A small percentage of our database have the wherewithal and the courage to pull the trigger in the Austin market. Because I've been telling you, Austin market, with all the trends with Apple headquarters, second headquarters moving to Austin a few years ago, with all the high-tech growth, with the pandemic and the remote investing situation, and the Austin metro market have exploded 12 to 18 months ago. And many of our investors purchased property there, single family home, new construction, like 3 or 4 years ago for 150K, 175K. Now those houses like more than double to 350 to 400K. And now the Austin median price inside Austin, he's like almost $500,000. Who would have thought, right? But I'm not saying the Raleigh, North Carolina market is exactly the same, but I don't have a crystal ball, and neither does Kevin. But I see the trends. Okay, I mean, I'm always one step ahead of the market. For those of you that have been following my network for the past 20 years, I'm always ahead of the game versus everybody else. And my intuition, my research, my due diligence indicate that the Austin metro market is following the similar trend, right? But let me, again, we're gonna give you a lot of, honestly, a lot of realistic situations. We're gonna be very transparent because we're not gonna blow smoke up, somebody's behind. We tell the truth, and so here in the Raleigh market, I believe, if I look at the analogy of a baseball game, 9 inning, right, baseball game, I would say that the Raleigh, North Carolina market right now is like 4th or 5th inning. What does that mean? Well, Kevin will elaborate on that momentarily. My estimation, we're halfway. We are halfway toward this hot market here in Raleigh, all right? So that means that there are still opportunities for highly motivated out-of-state investors, such as our network and anybody else out there in the USA, to pull the trigger in this market. Another thing that we can talk about, I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder because this is his webinar, right? I don't know the market as much as he does, but he's on the ground, he knows what's going on. But the price range you're going for is a little bit higher than you thought. right? They are around $300 to $375,000 range, single family home resales, like within 30 miles or so of the Research Triangle Park, right? You know, Apple is coming to this market, the Raleigh market. So not only that, right? There are many other high-tech companies is coming in here. Not furthermore, we look at the migration trends, the post-pandemic migration trends. People from Northeast New York City and Chicago and even California are migrating to the Raleigh, North Carolina market. Right? It's clear. I mean, those you look at U-Haul data, many more people moving into Raleigh than out of Raleigh. The U-Haul data is a very good metrics. So, and one final thing that before Kevin can pick up the rest of the presentation is that when you buy a property here in the market, you're buying through the multiple listing service. You have to make bids. You have to outbid other buyers from other part of the country for these very great properties. So this market right now here in Raleigh, the demand of homes is far exceeding supply. So it's a frenzy out there. But having said that, so you have to be proactive. You have to follow Kevin McVicker's guidance to find the right property for you. You have to make offers. So we require a little bit of time on your end. But the rental market is very strong. On a typical $350,000 property, you can get rented for like $21, $22, maybe $2,300. So with that said, on 20% down payment, the best you can expect is around break-even cash flow with 20% down. That is the benchmark. But this is an equity play. I mean, it's not all about cash flow, but the projection, we don't know the future, but the equity appreciation potential continue to be strong once again because of the things we just said. So I'm winded. I can't. Okay, it's not my turn to talk. It's Mr. Kevin McVicker. He will share with you quickly to validate what I just said. Furthermore, in a few minutes, Kevin gonna go over the good two success stories that we have with our investors that recently purchased. Our two investors that purchased through Kevin, and Kevin will show you the numbers. They'll show you the quality of the property, the neighborhood, and all that. And we have a number of other investors that are working with Kevin right now that are really want to pull the trigger here in this great Raleigh metro market. So without further ado, Mr. Kevin McVicker, take it away and tell our investors why this is a very good investment opportunity for high-end, motivated, committed real estate investors that want to buy and invest for the long term and reap the wealth and for yourself in this tremendous market. So take it away, Kevin McVicker.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Siwing, for bringing me to your program today. There's a couple of things that I want to first touch on, and that is some of the things that you brought out the very first time we put a webinar together. If you remember back in the late spring, when we first started talking about Raleigh as a potential fit for your investors, I remember some of the numbers you were presenting in terms of where we were here in terms of pricing. And with your experience with Austin, you kind of predicted, and I think you pretty closely hit it on the head. We were back then looking at homes, say priced in the mid 200s. And these were nice family-sized homes, 4-bedroom homes, 2,500 square feet, nice communities. And our discussion was about where were prices headed. And I still remember you said, Kevin, by the end of this year, you're going to be looking at prices that are approaching 400,000. And you said that, and I went, I don't know. Let's see. And you also predicted rents, which were well below $2,000. The average rent for a 4-bedroom house was still sitting around $1,500, $1,600 a month. And you anticipated a breakthrough that would occur in a matter of months, where we would be seeing these same houses being rented for $2,000. I said, okay, those are some pretty good measurements. Let's just see how we do. And now here it is. 5 months later, I'm looking back at what has happened, and you pretty much hit your mark. And I'm going to show you how you did that, or how the market reflected what you said. So, attaboy, good job.
Thank you.
But you bring me on board to say, okay, this is what happened, but why is it happening? And some of the questions that I've fielded from your investors is, what can I expect the future to look like? And I'll address that as best as I can as we go through this. So some of this stuff is going to be a repeat of what I presented to your group the first time, and that is just so they understand, Raleigh is different than Austin. I'm not from Austin. I've never been to Austin, so I don't know what's going on there. But here in the Triangle, the Research Triangle has had as its cornerstone two major industries. One is the high-tech computer industry and everything related to that. And you could probably wrap in the cell phone business too. And then couple that with medical technologies. We got one of the most well-known universities here in the Triangle. It's Duke University Medical Center. Most people don't know that what they do there. They just think, oh, it's a hospital. It's a lot more than a hospital. It's a research hospital. So you got some of the smartest people in the medical industry that work there. And it's very much in demand for any high-tech people in the medical field, even from India. If they got specialized skills, Duke will go out and bring them to work on their campus as a research scientist. And so we've got those two pillars, if you will. And if you would picture that kind of at the top of the pyramid in terms of our population here, you got a lot of high-tech people, and they're making very good money, and they want to invest it in homes here in the Triangle. But when we bring these people into the Triangle, there's just an immediate impact on the population, the economic levels below them, because you just need more and more support people to provide everything from the housing that they want. These houses need to be built. They need to be serviced. If they've got a car, it needs to be serviced. So we have a very growing base of renters to offer these properties to. And the key thing is what I kind of bring to the table is knowing what renters are looking for, and for us to properly target our investments to purchase the kind of properties that these renters are looking for. Because the ultimate goal here is to buy wise and buy properties that will rent quickly for, again, top dollar, the best you can do. Okay. So that gives you an idea of what's going on here in my market in terms of who's coming here. And yes, they are coming here. You mentioned migration. They are coming here for what I see as two main reasons. We've got a lot of people coming here from areas that are suffering around the country, where the jobs are disappearing, and they're coming to the Triangle for employment. And the other thing that's impacting us is the baby boomer generation. They're retiring. And where are they retiring to? The Southeast, also to the Southwest. But North Carolina is getting its share of these people looking for better climate, environments that are very suitable to the 55 and above crowd, with activities and neighborhoods and housing that satisfies their needs. So when we're looking for property, we want to look for the kind of property that these people are interested in living in. Some of these retired folks will rent from us. Some of them will go into planned communities. A lot of these people coming here for jobs, if they're not the high-tech people with very large incomes, they're going to be renting from us. And as a result, if we buy in the right locations at the right price points, that hits their budget, you'll see your houses getting rented fairly quickly. And I'll touch on the actual numbers later. A second question that you posed is media. Do you want just touch on this for maybe 30 seconds, Seawing? What kind of message are you picking up from the media?
Yeah, over the years, right? You and I, Kevin, you and I have been in the real estate business for several decades. So we know. I mean, the only way the media sells their information is they dwell on the negatives.
Bad
It's
news.
all doom and gloom information. So we hear there'll be real estate crash, real estate bubble, real estate correction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those, we just you and I mean, we need to just understand this is not the real information. It is out there. The media is out there to scare us. At the end
Perfect.
of the day, nationwide, there are projected to be 4 million homes that needed to happen. 4 million homes that are needed. Currently, there are only like a little bit over 1 million home supply. So the imbalance between demand of homes versus the supply is so out of whack. So when you have demands much greater than supply nationwide, I mean, the housing prices are going to go up. They're not going to go down. Yes, we have a slight correction right now because of the more supply, slightly more, but it'll take a long time for supply of homes to catch up with demand. So economics 101, fundamentals 101. We see a consistent rising prices, but not the crazy prices that we have seen last year. But because of the for those reasons,
That's
no crash.
you hit on it. But I wanted that message to come from you first, and then I'll
Sure.
add to that. Yes, I stopped listening to media reports on real estate a long time ago because 9 times out of 10 they're wrong. Every once in a while, they'll actually do a hindsight report and give you truth about what has recently happened, and I'll elaborate that a little bit in a second. But the point I wanted to raise is, as an investor, look for real data, not just what the media is pumping up, because yes, they thrive on fear and they want to instill fear because that's how they sell commercial time.
Yep.
On our side, we want to look at the opportunity that's present. And what's happening here is, in my market, I've seen over the last year, zero slowdown evidence, zero. And I can tell when I put properties on the market for sale, and sometimes just within minutes of me putting the property into MLS, my phone starts ringing, my email starts filling up, I'm getting requests for showings, and then I get multiple bids on houses, driving the price upwards of 10% over what I actually priced the house at. Then I know there is no slowdown. There is pent-up demand out there. And every time a desirable property, and I separate that from talking about inventory at large, because there's a lot of inventory coming on the market we don't even want to touch compared to what I'm presenting to my investors through the platform I have. We are going after the desirable homes, which is also the ones that other investors are looking for. So what we're experiencing here is a steady growth pattern, and what's driving it down at the grassroots level is something that the builders learned about a decade ago, that it was not wise to overbuild supply and exceed demand, and then try to reduce their inventories by opening up the doors to tons of investors to come walk into their neighborhood, and over a matter of a few months change a neighborhood makeup from being an owner-occupant neighborhood to becoming a rental community. The builders didn't like that. Number one, their revenues took a hit. They weren't able to sell properties at retail, and we as investors came in and bought at wholesale prices. So we buy at a wholesale, they sell at a loss. And then we put lots and lots of investors into a neighborhood, and suddenly now we've got lots of renters to the point where they now are the majority of the people living in the neighborhood. And so the builders have completely will recognize that that was a problem and said, we're not going to repeat that problem again. We're going to do managed growth. And so that's why today, if I go out and look for new inventory or resales, it's not like the old days where I could at any day go on to the computer and pull up 30 brand new desirable homes to pick from and then put my investors into it. Now, when those new homes come on the market, you can tell from the pricing, and some of your investors have seen this, when they look at what is available in new construction, you can see that that product is built and priced for the owner-occupant budget.
Yep.
And when you try and run it through your algorithms and say, okay, what is the actual cash flow going to be on it? You go pretty quickly, you can say, you know, it's negative. And I'll be missing that part of it and having to rely on what I consider to be a slightly slower appreciation rate than people who are buying quality resale property at a lesser price.
Yep.
And let me show you how these two recent investors hit the ball out of the park. When you see the numbers, I think you're going to be stunned. And it totally changes your mindset from being someone focused on cash flow to being focused on the appreciation potential. You know, certainly you got to look at both when you run your analysis, but don't lose sight of the appreciation. So media-wise, don't listen to them unless they can show you real numbers. And if you got questions, your folks can always come to me with questions, and I'll show them the real numbers of what's happening in the trenches and what's being sold at what price point today and what it's sold for just a matter of months ago. Okay?
Exactly.
So that also touches on I think I already covered one of your questions about new builds. The builders out there are not building with the intention of trying to sell it to investors. They have enough to do to build to satisfy the local buyers who are just looking for a home to live in, who have to compete against us investors for those same houses. And so the builder, he's going to sell to whoever offers them the most money, whether it be a local buyer or an investor. Okay, but no, not like we saw a decade ago with package deals come in and we'd sell you these beautiful homes for $150,000 and buy as many as you want. Those days are over.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere else in the country, but not here in my markets, which are the Research Triangle and in the Charlotte area of Mecklenburg County. Because I work in these two areas, and both areas they're mirror imaging themselves. In terms of if you look at the numbers in one, they're being duplicated in the other.
Yep, that's right.
Let's see, what other questions did you have? Builders questions, and oh, this is a good question. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of what's happening with prices. I think you know I've been in this market now since '94, and since '94, it was historically known that you would get anywhere between a 3% and a 5% appreciation rate. And that was pretty true up until about 2 years ago. And things suddenly began to change, whether it's COVID causing people to hunker down and hibernate in their home for months on end, and then finally come out into the real world and say, you know what, we need to buy a house now. And so you have all this pent up demand that's come back into the market, and there's not this inventory waiting for them like it used to be. So what we're seeing here is people who are waiting and saying, okay, I heard that there's going to be a market correction, and they hear about the pending crash, and I'll just wait for the crash. The same principles aren't applied right now. We had a crash before that was driven by a financial crash. People were buying homes that had 500 credit scores. They had no business buying a house. And that's why we had all this foreclosure business that created an opportunity for us as investors. Now the game has changed for financing. You have to have good credit. You have to have income. If you don't have those two, you don't get a mortgage. So the people buying today are qualified. They're not likely or as likely to go into foreclosure as what we experienced a decade ago.
Yep.
Right? So the game has changed, and we just got to recognize it. As a result, those people buying houses are going to fuel this acceleration we're seeing. And I'm going to put a third option on the table. You mentioned the correction or a crash. I predict if anything is in front of us, it's a plateau. Okay, we will continue to escalate to a point where things will just stabilize. When will that occur and what will that cause that to occur? You just have to wait and see. It could be anything. It could be something that happens in the global economy. It could be something that happens with the government taking certain actions that affect real estate. But you just got to look for all these buttons that can be pushed that will affect us as investors. But I don't predict a crash like we saw back in 2009. We have an environment here in the Carolinas that is pretty stable. Our platform, if you will, it's like a table that has a dozen legs on it. You can knock out one or two, but that table's not going to tip over.
Yep.
The areas that are dangerous is where they have an economy based on one or two or three income streams. You knock out one of them, and now you got to say, okay, who's going to pick up the load and keep this table from tipping over? Here in the Triangle, we have pretty stable economy, managed growth, and an area that we just see lots of people moving here. I'm amazed at the number of retirees that are coming here. The developers like Del Webb and others like them, they can't build them fast enough. And unfortunately, these are not all renters, but they're retired folk coming here. And what happens when the retired folk come here? Their family tends to follow too. So they come, they get jobs, they need houses, they need a place to rent. What's going to happen in the future was one of your questions. And I could not actually come up with a numerical number for it. And anyone that I think that tries to, I would question their logic in doing that. There's too many things that could change and say, well, how high can prices go? I don't know. All I do know is that it's an upward trajectory. And as far as how the triangle rates on multiple different measurements, it's better than most areas in the country. So if you're going to invest in real estate, yeah, invest in Austin, invest in the Triangle, invest in Charlotte, invest in areas of Florida. There's a number of places around the country, but don't go into high risk areas because the price is attractive. But the reason it's attractive is people are leaving. So the prices are on their way down. So it sort of makes sense.
Yep, you addressed it very nicely, Kevin. Very, very good.
So the thing that's what I see here as I interact with our population at stores, I'm out on the streets meeting people. People are coming here at a very good rate. They're coming for a number of reasons. I mentioned jobs and retirement. They're also coming for the lifestyle. They like the climate. They like our politics. And for those that like the nature we have to offer, 3 hours to the west, we're in the mountains. 3 hours to the east, or 2 hours to the east, we're at the beaches. So you got to have the best of both. Actually, true story. 2 weeks ago, I was out shopping and I saw someone loading their SUV up with stuff from the store, and something just made me go over and say hi to him. And he wanted to talk, so I talked, and I found out pretty quickly he came here to North Carolina. I missed him as a buyer. Unfortunately, he just bought a house. So I said, "Where'd you move from?" He's California. And I am so glad to be here in North Carolina, he said. So it tells me if that's just one individual I bump into that's leaving his area in California, coming here, how many more people are coming here because they've kind of gotten tired of the politics and their taxes in New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts,
and
plus
California.
the winters.
And California.
Plus the winters. The winters are real brutal. I used to live up north, and that's why I live in the south. So yeah, people are coming here for lots of reasons, and we see no end in sight. They're frantically looking for land that can be developed. So
yep,
that's the environment we're in right now. Now, what I'd like to do is shift over to showing you what I've been up to for the last 30 days, working with some of your investors,
Exactly.
some of which I'm still on the hunt, and it literally is hunting, because I'm not out there trying to just pick the latest house that came on the market and say, okay, this investor needs to buy this house. It needs to meet a criteria that I think is a formula for success. And I'm going to show you two.
Yep.
So can I flip over to this? And we'll do the share screen. I'm going to share with you this. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can see it.
This is actually a printout directly from my MLS system of two houses that I recently found for investors who were in this particular price range. The price range, keep in mind, is constantly moving up. So what I used to find 4 months ago in the 200s is now well into the threes. Things that I used to find in the threes are now in the fours. And we're talking about a change that has occurred in just the last 6 months.
Wow.
So this is recent data. This is as recent as a month ago. Here's a house in North Raleigh. It's in a zip code that was recently in our news. Zip code 27616 was reported a few weeks back as being, quote unquote, according to their measurements, the hottest zip code in the triangle. When I researched it, I found out that no, it's not the highest price zip code. It's the zip code with the highest volume of transactions. And when you look at, see what's available, you can see why. Here's a house that was purchased. It closed. You see the status on top. It was a closed sale. And it's a house in a very desirable part of Raleigh, on the north side of Raleigh, close to the Belt Line, which from this house puts you in the heart of RTP in under 30 minutes, which is a very reasonable commute, both for owner occupants and for renters. So it was listed, as you see on the top right side of the page, for a price of $389. And this investor followed my guidance, and we had made offers prior to this, trying to be a little more conservative and not as aggressive, but again, we lost out on the bidding. This is one that shows what it took to be successful. It was an offer that required us to go as high as $415. And in the contract, there's some other measurements that we use or numbers that we use to help us get the property. In our market, we use something called a due diligence fee. And that's money that is paid by the buyer directly to the seller at time of contract for the benefit of having the seller stop taking offers, work exclusively with us. And if we choose to, we have bought the right to terminate the contract at any point in time. That aspect, I've yet to have an investor that actually does that. Namely because we try to pick the better quality properties to begin with. If I can show you as an example, if I were giving you a tour of the house, this is what you would see. 4-bedroom home, 2-car garage, nice subdivision. And if we look to see what kind of amenities this house has, it's not technically a custom built home, but it is a builder that builds a higher quality of home, starting with hardwood floors, moldings, trim work. This one has hardwood floors throughout. We get to the kitchen, and you'll see upgraded kitchen, stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, high-end cabinetry, the hardwood floors continuing into the kitchen area. Center islands with granite, upgraded lighting, compared to your basic rental house. This house stands out above and beyond. This particular house, the owner, the buyer, the investor, put it on the market about 30 days ago. They got the applications coming in pretty quickly, and we were just notified today the tenant has moved in at a rent rate of $2,300 a month. I projected, somewhere in, when we first saw this house, I projected it would be over 2,000 conservatively speaking, 2,100, maybe as high as 22. When the property manager got his hands on it and started marketing, he got 23 out of it. So there is a property manager I work with. He knows the rental market like I know the sales market.
Yeah.
So I rely on him.
Yeah, exactly. So Kevin, based on my estimation, upon consulting this, my network investors that purchased this, these investors put down 25% down payment and a $2,300 rent with a interest rate mortgage of approximately 3.5%. This will be a break-even cash flow situation. So it meets our criteria. Her criteria is a very good benchmark moving forward for future investors that are entering into this market. So, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
and as you and that's one side of the story is that yes, this is a quality home that can pay for itself. But the other side of this story that doesn't get enough attention, and you need to do a little research to figure it out. I've got investors who want to buy a house just like this. Unfortunately, the market continues to move upward, and there is a house that I could sell today to an investor looking to buy a property like this. Unfortunately, it's priced at $255. So in the few months since she put the contract, she contracted on this 60 days ago. Here it is 60 days later, the same house is listed for $455,000.
Wow.
That's where people are growing their wealth in this market, not cash flow. It'll take you a lifetime to make money in cash flow. You can make the same money in 6 months.
That's right.
With buying the right properties in the right neighborhoods where there is a track record. And I can see it. And when I'm working with your investors, I show them this. I can go into the neighborhood and say, here's what this house was selling for. These homes sold in the 300s a year ago. They're now selling in the 400s in 1 year. I said, would you like to participate in that kind of appreciation growth? Will it continue to grow in that rate? I don't know. I don't think anyone could tell you with any precision, but all the criteria are in place for this rate of growth to continue for the near term. Does that mean we hit that plateau 6 months from now, a year from now, 18 months from now? I don't know. All I know is I want to be on that train and ride it as high as it goes. And when it plateaus, great. I can sit there because now I've got a property that's equity has grown, and I'm still have a mortgage that I'm able to pay. And next year, when this gets up for renewal of rent, guess what happens with that rent rate? My 23 goes to 24, 24.50. So I can make up for that cash flow deficiency down the road.
Kevin, let me make one important comment, which is I've been making this for longest time, for decades, right, on historical basis. As an investor, you need to look at the long term. You look at this investment 10, 15, 20 years, and even more. You buy and hold long term because you got yourself a great mortgage, a fixed rate mortgage, which will never go up in payment. So what a great situation. So the rent is gonna go up. So yeah, I mean, don't worry about the short-term volatility or whatever, but knowing that your property can be rented, you can get the tenant gonna pay your obligations. So I mean, what a great situation. So invest for long term. Your property will be fine over the next 7-10 years. Historical speaking, houses will grow in value, and you got a good rental market on a consistent basis. So yeah, so that's what you need to look at as an investor. All right, so go on, Kevin.
Okay, now this is one that we just got last week. When I say just got, the investor and I were looking for inventory and had been looking for inventory for about maybe 2 months. We've made offers. We lost. We got outbid. This property came up, and this one followed the first one I showed you, you see the zip code is still 27616. That right now is my number one zip code to go for these quality homes that you're seeing here in this price range, approximately around the 400,000 mark as an entry point. Certainly there's other zip codes as well, but this one here, if there is an opportunity to buy something in this, your investors are going to know about it. This one came on the market, and in the interesting thing, the way it worked, I kind of worked together collaboratively with the investors, allowing them to use my platform to pick out properties that appeal to them. They may see a price point they like, they may see a location that interests them. They'll text me or email me telling me that there's a house that they saw through the platform and they'd like more detail about it. We discuss it. Don and I were doing that, property after property after property, and he found one that he was almost ready to pull the trigger on, and said, what do you think we should offer on this house? And something in my gut said, run the report one more time for him. And I did. This house, this one on Gallatree, it popped up. This is a real-time system. So if there's an agent out there that took this listing and put an MLS and they hit enter and it's submitted to MLS, it pops into my report immediately. He didn't see it because he ran the report the day before. I ran the report while I was talking to them. Got back with this information. I sent this information to him and I said, forget about the house you're looking at, because for the same price, I can get you a better one in a more desirable area. We looked at this. It took him maybe 30 minutes to look at all the numbers and said, yeah, I see what you're talking about. Let's go for it. So we put an offer in, and knowing what happened with that previous home and the investor there, I know what it'll take to get it, to beat out the competition. So that price of 370, we came in with an offer of 340,000. I mean, no, it's 340, 400,000. Okay, we went up 30K. We offered them 10,000 as a due diligence fee. We were up against multiple bids, and the listing agent called me back, told me it's down to just a few things. He just wanted to confirm things about our financing, which that was part of the strategy discussion I had with this investor. He could have gone both ways, either getting a loan, or he could use his IRA funds and just pay cash. Knowing that it was going to be a competitive bid situation, I recommended to him to go ahead and make this a cash transaction with a close in under 21 days. That's what got us this house. We pretty much meet the competition on price, but the fact that we could guarantee a low risk opportunity for the seller, that this was a deal that was going to go through, and we proved it by offering them a good amount of due diligence plus quick close financing, no, or lack of financing, just cash. So that's how we ended up getting this particular property. And so far we're going through the due diligence period. Everything is checking out. I don't expect any problems with appraisal, because the previous home in the same zip code, similar square footage, that one appraised for more than the 400 that we offered on that one. That actually came in a few $1,000s over the bid price. So that's how this thing works between your investors, the resources I have access to here, to getting this data and knowing what's happening in the market with our competition, the other investors out there, and being able to put together an offer that gives us a better chance of winning. And it takes that level of confidence that you know what your goal is. You want this in your inventory. You want a piece of this appreciation opportunity, not looking at it from a cash flow only perspective. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Kevin, really makes sense. You have covered so many aspects, the pros and cons about this challenging market, and you are being honesty, you're being very transparent in your presentation, you're being very realistic. And yeah, I mean, you are merely providing great, valuable information, which is really you can't get anywhere else. I don't think, because you are a value add realtor. You know, I mean, you know the out of state investors, and you work very hard. Obviously, you know, you put in a lot of time and effort. You know, the blood, sweat, and tears to work with each individual investors out there from us, from our network. So we really appreciate that. You've been doing a tremendous, great client service, and our investors understand this market. And you have to be, if you want to pull the trigger in this market, you have to get your ducks on order, get your loan pre-approved through my network, you know, and then you need to be proactive, be available to I know many of you work full time, have a very, very busy life and all that, but you need to be proactive and in this fast moving market. So work closely with Kevin, and on a weekly basis, you have to make few offers, you may get rejected a few times, but just be persistent, just be commit to the process. Don't lag, don't be lazy, make offers, and you will get what you want. I mean, in due times, and then when your properties get rented, and you can be happy. You can be a happy camper, and that's what we have seen so far. Investors that went through Kevin, and Kevin with many other investors from other network and from the other markets over as well. So I'm sure you are, you know, you're very, very happy that all the investors that you work with recently have exceeded their expectation, and I don't see any other reason not to. So working with you, Kevin, is just you know, is a very, very been a very positive experience. We'll continue to work for the long term. Your market is not going anywhere, so it'll be a long-term buy and hold situation working in your market. So I know we ran over time now.
Right. Let me show you. Can I skipped over one slide I want people to see before we depart. I talked about it, but I want to show them so they know I'm not just making up these numbers. Remember, I told you I've got investors that want to buy another house like your previous investors bought, ideally in that same zip code.
Right.
So I ran this report today to see what's available that has the same age, size, and then see what they're asking for a similar home. And here's one, same age, very similar square footage. It's got a different elevation. So see, it's got that porch on the second story as well as the first. But more importantly, look at the price. What was in the upper 300s? Remember the 389 price?
Right.
Here's the price now, 455. And this is in 60 days. This is the change in 60 days. It blows my mind because in the days when I first got in this business working with investors, it would take us a year to see the appreciation rate like we're seeing in just 60 to 90 days.
Wow, this is crazy. This is so interesting. Wow. Well, any final thoughts before I know this webinar has ran longer than usual, but there's a reason for that. You know, the content is invaluable. The information you put out invaluable. If it needs up to 45 to 50 minutes to put your thoughts across, then that's what we got to do.
And they have my number, email, reach out to me with any questions they want answered. They want more background on this location. Just reach out. I'll be glad to provide them anything they need.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time, Kevin McVicker from Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you so much. And with that in mind, this is Yee from the Yee Network. Thank you for attending, and I will see you on the other side. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Yep.